Welcome Dr. Robert Butler, the CEO of the International Longevity Center, who himself is a fit 75 years young. Good morning, Dr. Butler.
Good morning to you.
It seems like as we get older, we start packing on the pounds. So how do we keep the weight off after we turn 50?
We don't have to pack on those pounds. The truth is it's very simple. Energy in, energy out. Energy in means the food you take. Energy out means the activity level. If you sit around sedentary, you're going to gain weight. But if you remain physically active, you can control that weight.
Do our dietary needs change as we get older?
Yes, in fact, to some degree. Basically, we still have to have a balanced diet, but we probably need more fiber because of bowel issues. We also have to be a little bit careful about not having as much iron, particularly women after they've gone through the climacteric.
Why is that?
And men, because the iron can accumulate in the body, in the heart, in the liver, and that's not advantageous. But you should also maintain those 5 to 7 fruits and vegetables every day, and you should also take the least expensive multivitamins that you can get in your drugstore.
What about your metabolism? Does that change as you get older? Does it slow down?
Again, it's one of those things, if you remain physically active, your metabolism will keep up. Metabolism is really related to muscle, and muscle does a much better job in metabolizing than fat does. If you allow yourself to become inactive, your metabolism will decline. Keep active, and it won't.
Okay, you have laid out 4 key factors to staying fit after the age of 50, so let's go through them. You say aerobic activity.
Absolutely.
How much do we need? And we also have to be careful, you know, that we don't, like, fracture a hip or, you know.
Well, you know, if the 4 things include balance, which will help you in terms of fracturing your hip, because you can practice while you're brushing your teeth, you can stand on one foot, anything to maintain that balance. Second is you can stretch and maintain flexibility. Aerobics means having something at least get you to sweat every day, probably at least 3 times a week. Fast walking being the best, and you can control that by having a counter that will keep track of exactly how many steps you take. And finally, muscle strengthening. The #1 reason to declare yourself unwilling to become frail is to have strong thigh muscles. And you can do that by various types of strengthening exercises.
I want to point out what you have in your hand there.
Right.
That's a DigiWalker, and you say that if it measures how many steps you take a day.
That's correct.
So far, you haven't done much. You've already taken.
I just got up after all.
And you've taken 400 plus steps. But if you take 10,000 a day, you're par for the.
10,000 a day, you will maintain your weight. If you have been very inactive, you will actually start losing weight.
Okay.
This was discovered by a Japanese physician, and it's really terrific because it gives you power, control over your own life.
What if someone spent most of their life in a very sedentary lifestyle and then they turn 50? Is it too late to start exercising and eating right and having, you know, incorporating more fiber and supplements? Is it too late? It is
never too late to start, and frankly, it's always too soon to stop. And you don't have to be crazy. You use common sense. You begin to build a program for yourself, but you really should not assume whatever amount of activity you did in the past, you can still be active.
Okay, I just want to go through those 4 steps because we kind of jumped through. We started out with aerobic activity. You say speed walking is great.
Correct.
Muscle strengthening.
Correct.
And specifically, that's so important because?
Because you have to have those muscles strong in order to be able to not fall, have a broken hip, or go through many of the terrible frailty problems that older people experience. Stretching
and flexibility is the 3rd key factor, you say. Does it really matter how flexible you are if you can touch your toes?
You know, you don't want to become rigid and fixed. You want to be able to really maneuver your body. And again, you don't want to fall off a curb in a street and break that hip. There are 350,000 hip fractures in this country every year.
And the final thing you said was balance.
Balance. People neglect balance. And yet balance is so important, again, in terms of maintaining that body, not falling, and not, therefore, winding up with an injury.
Good advice at any age.
Thank you.
Dr. Robert Butler, thanks so much.
Okay.
And if you would like more information on how to get fit after 50, just log on the Early Show website at cbsnews.com. And now here's Harry.
Thanks, Julie.